Start, sub, or sit experience being most valuable in end of game situations, being most valuable in managing the flow of a season, the ups and downs of how to schedule practice and how hard to push them, how not hard to push them, or in the psychology and interactions with athletes. So knowing how guys are as people, how to handle them. So start, sub, sit, those three different types of experiences.
End of game situations, no, that's the last one. That's it. Are they important? Yeah, it's important, but no. If you've got a good staff, if you're organized, you can handle that. The other ones, it's a tough call between those two. I would say the overall picture is where the experience comes in more, because you can get yourself in trouble if you don't have the perspective to look at the big picture and understand everything that goes with being a head coach in particular, whether it's in the NBA or in college. I'd have to say that's important. It's close. So sub, it's really difficult. If you can't handle your players, if your players don't play for you, respect you and your staff, then you're not going to be coaching very long. But I still think that where experience matters the most, and where it's happening in the NBA on a regular basis now. There's almost a designated position in the NBA now for an old Harry assistant coach. Like, you got to have a guy who's been a head coach in the league and has that perspective. Because you got guys coaching in the league that have never been a head coach, that never put a practice plan together. There's so many other things that go into it. In terms of pacing your players, not beating up your best guy and playing him too many minutes. And I think the perspective that comes with the experience of being a head coach, slight edge over handling players. Handling players is really the name of the game, but I still think if you're lucky enough to have good players and good assistants, you might be able to figure that one out, particularly if you've been a former player yourself. If you haven't been a head coach, you're going to be confronted with some things that you never realized were part of the job, where experience is really going to matter.
Moving along, our next start, sub, sit for you, we call this tough to teach, and specifically looking at post play. So we're going to give you 3 phases of a post catch or a post play, and which is the toughest to teach. So the first one is a big who can do his work early and kind of catch on a seal for a quick finish, or a big who has patience and can survey and pass out of the post, or finally a big who can kind of get you a bucket and go to work and, teaching them one-on-one moves where they got to make 2-3 dribbles and try to finish.
Wow. I like all of those. I'm going to sit the last one because there are more guys who, when they do get the ball, can get you a bucket or can get fouled or do something with it. So I'm going to sit the skilled one. Boy, the other two are tough. I actually think the first one is almost a nuance. Doing your work early is really important, but I'm going to make that the sub, the second one, just because that's like, you're like in the promised land then. If you got a guy that's doing that, it's unbelievable. So I can't make it the starting one, because the other one is more when you do get him the ball, when you have to teach that. You got to be able to teach somebody to recognize a double or see that the double's coming, or be poised enough to either throw it out of there or sometimes even to bait the guy, to know when to kick it out or when to hold the ball and actually force against the double. I think that one, those two are hard for me to differ. Yeah. All 3 of them are great. Those are great teaching points, but I think that one, the patience, the poise to handle that situation, I think they have to have that first. That do your work early is a home run. I mean, if you get a guy that does his work early, it almost takes care of the other two. And the last one is, there's a lot of guys who can score when they get the ball, but getting them the ball, maybe as importantly, in good position. Guys who don't know how to do their work early end up with the ball 4 feet further out or 4 feet higher than they want to be. And all of a sudden a good thing doesn't happen. So those 3 are really tough for me to differentiate.
You mentioned when to pass against the double and when to try to force or go to work against the double. So what would be the circumstances in those cases?
Well, I think two things. First of all, recognize who's doubling. Sometimes they're doubling with a little guy that's like a gnat, like it's like a mosquito trying to do something. I mean, you're not other than trampling him or tripping over the guy, he's not a factor. You can pass out over him. He's too little. He can't affect you. Or as a guy coming down, a strong player or a long player. Everybody loves long players now, not just the pure height, but the size of their arms, the wingspan. You got to recognize, is it a good double or is it not a good double? You got to recognize what the coach wants. Sometimes you want your best guy. For him to force up a bad shot is better than to kick it out and somebody else to, you're living for the shot from the perimeter. Everybody goes, yeah, double the ball, get him out of his hands. We'll take our chance with Dan taking a jump shot. The hell with that. But, you tell a guy after he does that, you say, I don't care if you commit an offensive foul, you're shooting the ball. We're going to get it to you. You manufacture. And again, he's got to be somebody who's good enough to do it, but either split the double or take the Akeem or Patrick fade away. I want you taking the shot or you getting fouled in that situation. Normally in the course of a game, it's recognized what's better. The guy's wide open for a shot. Who's doubling me? Is it easy for me to pass out of the double or not? And sometimes that in and out is a great thing, where the ball goes in, kicks out, and then repost. And repost goes hand in hand with what you're talking about, doing your work. There are guys who are so good at they kick the ball out, and then they just move you backwards. And the refs are better at calling that in the NBA right now. But a lot of times on the repost, the big man does such a good job acquiring better position that now when he catches the ball a second time, he's much closer to the basket, or he's in better position to get something done down inside. So
the theme of this one is stopping a run. And we've asked this one before. It's a fun one to ask, but the other team's gone on a little bit of a run. As a coach, how you look at trying to kind of break up that run. So start, sub, or sit, calling a timeout and having a little powwow with the group, changing your defense, zone it up, or changing some sort of defensive coverage, or changing personnel, getting some subs in and changing the look on the floor.
Personnel, sit. Some runs you have to take a timeout. Phil Jackson is notorious. We just refuse to take timeouts. Pop gets like that sometimes. Pop is great calling timeouts. Every once in a while he'll get upset because he's made the point and guys aren't listening, and he'll go, let them figure it out. And he'll say, let him do it. But timeout, I think, is important. I would have actually put, I know it's not there, my fourth one would have been an offensive play. I think you have a better chance of stopping a run by good offensive execution, because if your team's not buying in or not defending particularly well, or the other team's making shots, sometimes it matters less what you're doing on the defensive end. You better stop the damn thing either with a timeout, or you better get the ball to your best player, or get the ball inside and get to the free throw line, because you can stop it with offense. It's always what do you do when you're down 10? You got to play both ends. You got to get a stop and a score. Well, sometimes the stop is harder to get, particularly in the NBA, than the score. And I forget the three you gave me. What was the third one that I'm forgetting?
Changing to defensive coverage.
Less so in the NBA. It matters. Well, I shouldn't say that. You better be able to double. Like when one of the great players gets on a run, you better get the ball out of his hands. That guy shouldn't be able to go for 10, 12 points in a row, even if it is LeBron or even if it is KD. Then you just double team him. You probably can't triple team him, but you got to get the ball out of his hands.
Yeah.
If it's if it's a good player. But again, the defensive adjustments to me are more difficult. In the old days in college, you'd stand up and you'd go, whoa, we're running 4 down. Like Pop's 4 down was get the ball to Tim Duncan. You want to stop the run? Get the ball to Duncan down on the left box. He'll stop the run right there because he's going to score. So it's players are important. I think timeouts are critical for coaches. I think you really do your team a disservice. Phil had a different philosophy, and obviously it was extremely effective. But I think a coach has got to use a timeout. That enables you to do the subbing if you want to. But Sometimes you can't sub because the game's going up and down. Sometimes you take a foul. Literally, you take a foul just to stop the clock so you can, get somebody out of the game or make somebody else beat you. But I think timeouts are critical. I think you do it with offense. I think an offensive call and getting the ball to the guy you want or to a position on the floor, make the refs make it. You get yourself to the free throw line. You keep missing jump shot after jump shot. Like, hey, let's get a layup or let's get a free throw. They might be good jump shots you're getting. They ain't going down. Let's let the ref blow the whistle, get somebody to the free throw line or get our big guy the ball in the paint. That'll stop a run.